Hey, Billy, why don't we tell them what we're about, man?
So we're here to welcome you to the Madhouse Chronicles. It's a talk show with myself, Billy Morrison.
And me, Ozzy Osbourne.
This man, Prince of Darkness. And we watch and react to the maddest internet clips. What do we discuss, Ozzy?
Drugs, rock and roll, aliens, all that kind of shit.
Drugs, rock and roll, aliens, and all that kinds of shit. Come and join Ozzy and myself. Visit osbornemediahouse.com to get special access to...
Come on!
What do you say? Do you think it's the wildest show on the internet?
Oh.
Exciting news, Wine Coven! We are doing a live show at the Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul on Saturday, September 21st, 2024.
We love the Fitzgerald.
We do. We love them so much.
This is going to be a wild and witchy time with a feral girl theme, and we are working on some, I'm going to say, masterful costumes.
Yes, we
are very inspired by the film The Craft. And we definitely encourage you to dress up. We love a theme.
We are the weirdos, mister. Yes, we're so excited. So get your tickets before they sell out. Head to wineandcrimepodcast.com for that sweet, sweet link. I'm telling you, act fast. Presale was already a big success, so tickets are going to go real quick. You don't want to miss it.
They're going to vanish into the night.
Yes.
And we cannot wait to be back at the Fitzgerald Theater and to see all of you on September 21st.
Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where two friends
Our brain damage.
chat true crime, completely forget what they're talking about, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
Oh, golly. I was in the most Minnesotan of Minnesotan places this last weekend, Duluth.
Yeah, celebrating your anniversary.
Can you believe it's been a whole year?
The big one.
My God.
That went fast.
Yeah, and also agonizingly slow at the same time.
Well,
They say the first year's the hardest.
do they? Has it been?
Not the marriage, but it has been a year.
It's been a fucking year.
My poor husband.
Ooh, yeah, he did not know what he was signing up for.
None of us knew, but we made it. We made it through year one. Also, I'm Amanda. I don't fucking whatever.
I'm Lucy. I'm the other one.
Welcome. You had COVID.
Yes, I had the vid last week. I was stricken with the vid.
How's Junie?
Yeah, as was my 8-month-old. Whoops.
But she was like, she breezed through it, didn't she?
She was completely fine.
Good for her. Good.
She tested positive, and then we took her to her pediatrician, and the pediatrician was like, I'm not even going to test her again because she's fucking fine. So.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Not glad you both got COVID, but I'm glad it wasn't horrible, you know?
I was glad that Corey took on a lot of June duties so that I could sleep and recover quicker than I otherwise would have. So
and he never got it?
He never got it.
He's
fine.
Men. My husband's never had it.
Still? Wow. But is he one of those who just doesn't test, so it's never confirmed?
No, like he's gotten a cold or whatever, we've tested, and he tested when I had it 2 summers ago, and he never tested positive. We have a lot of tests at our house. I test frequently still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's like a surge happening right now, so it's important that we still stay vigilant, stay home when you're not feeling good.
Wear your masks, you know, the whole nine.
I was chastised by my doctor because I made an appointment at like the Minute Clinic, like urgent care, to go in and get a confirmation test. And the doctor comes in, he's like, we don't recommend that you do this anymore.
All right. Well, good to know.
Since when?
I don't know. They probably just don't want you getting healthcare providers sick, but also, isn't that part of the risk? Being a healthcare provider?
Like,
to be fair, you texted me a picture of your test and the line was there, but it was pretty faint. I probably would have been tempted to get a PCR myself.
I just feel like, has it gotten less serious? No, not really.
Mm-mm.
I don't know. Whatever. Well, fucking whatever. Anyway, today we will be discussing
nothing like this.
Labor crimes.
Happy Labor Day weekend.
It's Labor Day weekend, babies.
Can you believe?
Yeah. What are you doing for Labor Day weekend? Oh, wait, I know.
Will be celebrating a gathering of many lovely podcast people with Josh Hallmark at the center because it will be his birthday weekend.
I'm so jealous.
I know. But you have some fun plans for Labor Day weekend, too.
I do. Myself and Corey and June and two of our friends, including my Latin friend, Ben, are taking a little trip to good old Santa Fe.
Oh, it's going to be gorgeous.
Because I've never been. We wanted to go to Taos. We wanted to go to some hot springs.
Mm-hmm.
We got
Check
an Airbnb with a pool.
Oh, perfect.
It's going to be pretty nice.
Freaking perfect.
So that's our Labor Day plans.
I know.
And
I wish that this episode was more about having a 3-day weekend and less about traumatic labor histories.
really traumatic.
Like-
I have a case for us today, and it's not.
Is yours based in the
Fun.
U.S.?
Yes.
Yeah. U.S. labor practices. Yikes.
Yikes.
Big
And we're
yikes.
not even talking about the radium girls.
Mm-mm. Oh, God. Forgot
Yeah.
about the radium girls.
They're like, jaws fell off.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild.
Anyway, I gotta, can you fix my brain with
Yeah.
a wine crime pairing?
Yeah, I can. I thought for this week's wine crime pairing, I could go over a couple of fun cocktail recipes that are easy to whip up to make your Labor Day super, super special.
Less
So-
laborious.
Less laborious. They are indeed easy. I looked up some easy Labor Day cocktail recipes from Bevy. This is bevy.co. And I picked my favorite 3 of their 20 simple drinks for enjoying a relaxed Labor Day.
Mm.
So the top of my list is the South Coast Fizz. This is a kind of a riff on a classic Southside cocktail, which contains gin, lime, sugar, and club soda.
Okay. Never heard of it.
I haven't heard of it either, but it sounds like everything I ever wanted.
Yeah, it's very you.
Yep, but this one uses a specific gin that's apparently made in Italy with Italian juniper and 5 other botanicals in it. It's called Malfi, Malfy. So to whip this together, you want 2 ounces of Malfi Gin Original, 0.5 ounces of lemon juice freshly squeezed, 0.5 ounces of lime juice freshly squeezed, 0.5 ounces of simple syrup, which you can whip up so easily yourself. It's literally sugar and water. 2 ounces of club soda, and then you garnish it with a lime wheel and a mint sprig, and it just looks so refreshing, ravishingly refreshing. And that's easy peasy. And if you don't want to go all fancy with the fancy gin, you could just do it with regular gin.
Yeah.
Something a little on the sweeter side, if we have like a hot, sweaty Labor Day weekend, I really hope we don't, because I know the state fair goers prefer not to have so much heat.
And Renfest.
And Renfest, but Renfest goes well into September, so you can kind of beat the heat and go a little bit later if you don't want to double up on your weekend. But this next recipe I wanted to feature is the White Peach Palmer.
Oh.
A white peach Palmer is a fun and refreshing take on the Arnold Palmer, that summertime favorite that combines iced tea with lemonade. In this case, you're turning the simple drink into a fruit-forward cocktail featuring Dewar's 12-year-old Scotch whiskey, peach liqueur, lemon juice, simple syrup, and green tea.
Ooh.
So you'll do 1.5 ounces of Dewar's 12-year-old Scotch whiskey, 0.5 ounces of peach liqueur. So it's not going to be like a crazy sugar bomb, because that whiskey is going to keep it nice and tight. You're only
Yeah.
using a little splash of that peach liqueur, 0.75 ounces of freshly squeezed lemon juice, 0.25 ounces of simple syrup, which you can always skip the simple syrup if you just don't want anything too sweet. You can even literally do a splash of water to just kind of level it out. 2 ounces of unsweetened green tea, and then you garnish with mint and a peach slice. Again,
dang,
absolutely gorgeous. If you really want to doctor it up, some of the photos that they feature have a bunch of fresh peach chopped up in the cocktail itself alongside the ice, which is so tasty looking.
Have you ever had a green tea shot?
I have. They're good.
That's like peachy. There's peach schnapps in there too.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's becoming more popular. I feel like I'm seeing those more places.
I just heard of them recently.
Oh, well, maybe it's a new thing.
Well, no, that does, just because I'm just hearing about it does not indicate anything.
That's true. We're basically boomers.
The green tea shot is equal parts Irish whiskey, Jameson, peach schnapps, and sour that's finished off with a splash of citrus soda.
Which sounds like it would be awful, but I bet that's good.
It tastes exactly like green tea. They mellow each other out so, like, perfectly. It's kind of magical.
That is the opposite of this last cocktail that I wanted to feature from the list, which is a stunning Belvedere Spritz.
Ooh.
Which, if you're, new to your mixology era of your life, this is one that is going to absolutely knock people out of the park and, like, make everyone think you are a tried and true veteran bartender. With like minimalist ingredients. It's very easy to make. So really where you can get creative with this is with your garnishes and your toppers. You can kind of do whatever. I'm like such a grapefruit girly, but like blood orange would be so perfect in this. Any kind of mild, refreshing citrus. Cucumber would be good in this. Like you can really get fun with the herbs you want to put in there. Some rosemary, kind of whatever you want. But it's super, super easy. So you do equal parts Belvedere vodka and Lillet Blanc. They recommend an ounce of each. A couple grapefruit slices. Again, you can change up your preference. There are some folks who are literally on medication that won't allow you to have grapefruit. If you are in that position or you simply don't like grapefruit, blood orange is such a perfect replacement for that. It's going to have a very similar flavor profile, very similar look, but isn't going to bring like the danger of not mixing well with your meds. So keep that in mind.
Also probably a little sweeter too.
A little sweeter. They recommend a sprig of thyme, and then you top it off with equal parts sparkling water and tonic. So it's going to add, that tonic is going to add a little bit of bitterness to it.
Sparkling water and tonic?
Yes, because it's like a refreshing, bubbly spritzer, and it just looks stunning. Like if you want to make cocktails that people are going to want to take photos of.
Yeah.
South Coast Fizz, White Peach Palmer, Belvedere Spritz, we've got you covered. These are really easy cocktails that you can whip up for Labor Day weekend, whether you're just doing it for you because you deserve rest, put those feet up, or you're having some people over for maybe a little barbecue.
Oh, those sound delicious.
Yeah, I thought those were super fun. Those are my recommendations for labor crimes.
I like your theme of Labor Day weekend drinks to labor less.
Laborless Labor Day weekend drinks. The easiest possible, most minimal labor cocktails other than just like pouring a shot for yourself. Which like, do
Which
that
you could
too.
also do.
Yeah, if you feel so inclined, do that too.
It's 3-day weekend.
It is a 3-day weekend. We'll sleep when we're dead.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
Let's do it. I know for me that my temperature at night can have the greatest impact on my sleep quality, and that's true for like most people. So if you're waking up too hot or too cold, I cannot recommend highly enough that you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets inspired by NASA. Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long.
Yeah. We're in the thick of August right now.
It's hot.
It's hot. And for me personally, it's Monday today. It's laundry day.
And
I got my miracle sheets on deck because I know that I'm going to sleep so well all week long, probably for the next few weeks if I'm being brutally honest, because
Yeah.
you don't need to wash these sheets as often as your regular run-of-the-mill bed sheets.
Sure don't.
So like Amanda said, they feature self-cooling properties for better quality sleep using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, #Women in STEM. Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long into the mid-morning. Honestly, sleep in. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, do it.
And because these sheets are infused with silver, I can't get over that.
I know.
That prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. They're not going to get as gnarly nearly as quickly.
Less laundry, baby.
I love less laundry.
Me too.
Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than some sheets used by 5-star hotels. These are my new favorite sheets.
They're so soft and comfy.
Yeah, and just cool. I love them. They're my summer sheets. So stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts, acne, weird little skin bumps. You just don't want it. Plus, it feels kind of gross. So sleep clean with Miracle.
Go to trymiracle.com/gals to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself, please buy them for yourself, or as a gift for a loved one, or just buy a second set for yourself. If you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code GALS at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product. It's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/gals and use that code GALS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/gals to treat yourself. And thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Okay, definitely did not grab
A lighter.
weed and my cute new lava lamp oneie on our little break there, but we're back.
We're back.
And Lucy, what is our background, maybe psych, and maybe a little case for labor crimes?
Yes.
Oh.
I have a case for us, and it's
Oh, geez.
real sad.
Oh, you don't say.
I do. I do
say.
So, okay, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, Labor Day is an annual celebration of American workers' social and economic achievements. The holiday is rooted in events of the late 19th century when labor activists pushed for a federal holiday to recognize workers' many contributions to America's strength, prosperity, and well-being. They were really pro workers.
You know
at this
what
time.
workers don't need so much? 1 3-day weekend a year. They need fair pay, livable wages, livable hours all year.
Yep. So this was supposed to be like,
Nice.
does your head feel like a lava lamp now?
A little bit.
So does mine.
Ugh.
So I think they saw this as like the first step in like, we just need that acknowledgement. Then we'll have like a platform to push for more reform down the road. Before it was a federal holiday, Labor Day was recognized by labor activists and individual states. So
Okay.
it was around for a while before this.
It just wasn't a federal
holiday. Yep.
Okay.
That like mandated not working. After municipal ordinances were passed in 1885 and 1886, a movement was developed to secure state legislation. So New York was the first state to introduce a bill, but Oregon was the first state to pass a law recognizing Labor Day on February 21st, 1887.
Wow. Okay.
That same year, 4 states, those were Colorado, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, passed laws creating a Labor Day holiday. I think they were like all different. By the end of the decade, 3 more states had followed suit. On June 28th, 1894, Congress passed an act making the first Monday in September of every year a legal holiday, which, like, vacation-wise, much better than mid-February.
Yeah.
If I have a day off...
I'd rather it be when I can comfortably go outside.
Exactly.
I mean, February 21st in Minnesota is like peak hell time. January, February is like the worst part of the winter.
It's just like dirty gray snow.
And it's
Everything's
fucking cold.
wet. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like it can't even really be wet yet because it's not warm enough up here.
Ugh.
It's brutal. Oftentimes we get like polar vortexes January, February. That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the best time to have a 3-day weekend.
So thanks to Congress for making it early September.
Yeah, thanks for that one thing.
Most sources, including the U.S. Department of Labor, credit a guy named Peter McGuire with the origination of Labor Day.
Toby Maguire.
Toby Maguire. But note that it's Maguire, M-C-G-U-I-R-E, like Lizzie McGuire.
Love that.
This will be important later.
Okay.
According to the story, Peter stood before the New York Central Labor Union on May 12th, 1882, to suggest setting aside one day a year to honor labor. He believed that Labor Day should be, quote, celebrated by a street parade which would publicly show strength and esprit de corps of the trade and labor organizations.
Okay.
A spirited body.
Is that what esprit means?
Esprit is spirit, I think.
Isn't that a brand?
Yeah. Like a very 90s.
Sportswear? Yeah, I
Yeah.
know I had like 10 Esprit sweet shirts.
Sweet shirts.
Sweatshirts and tees.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that was a real word.
It's French, so barely.
So it's barely real.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Don't worry. You didn't like super miss anything.
Got it.
Okay, so everyone said it's Peter McGuire, who was the father of Labor Day. But recent evidence uncovered at the New Jersey Historical Society suggests that the true father of Labor Day, you are the father, is Matthew Maguire, M-A-G-U-I-R-E.
So who's this Peter motherfucker?
I'm going to tell you.
Some thief? Don't get nothing past Jersey. Jersey's on it.
On it.
I wonder why they look so deeply into this. Jersey's like, we don't want to honor Labor Day. Let's discredit the founder of Labor Day. Let's just fuck the whole world up.
Yeah. Mhm.
Jersey just wants to watch the world burn.
They really wanted to disrupt.
I just
Watch
imagine
the world burn.
Just imagine like Teresa Giudice storming the New Jersey Historical Society with receipts, screenshots, evidence.
Emails, screenshots, text messages.
I know I'm getting all my franchises meshed, but you know what?
That's okay.
Who cares? The real ones know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Well, the Teresa one was when she's confronting Danielle about having the book, the tell-all. Porn star?
Porn star?
I don't even remember the whole rant.
No, there's no other part that's important.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Josh Hallmark would be really disappointed in us right now.
Yeah, but I think he's often really disappointed.
Prostitution whore?
Prostitution whore. That's what it was.
Yep.
Prostitution whore.
It was just on the tip of my tongue.
Yep.
Okay, so Matthew Maguire, you are the father.
Mm-hmm.
He was a popular 19th century union leader. So Matthew Maguire was soups passionate about the improvement of the working conditions for the American labor force. He was like, there's some fucked up shit going on. I will lead the charge.
Yep.
To like get stuff fixed.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1870s, Matthew led several strikes, most of which were intended to force the plight of manufacturing workers and their super long hours into public consciousness. So he was trying to raise awareness of this crap.
Meanwhile, there are sitting members of the U.S. government in states like, wasn't it Mississippi just dialed back child labor laws by like 100 fucking years?
Iowa.
Oh, one of them then. There's
it was
multiples.
Iowa. Oh, well, maybe it didn't pass in Iowa yet.
There's
but it's
definitely
like on
more than one.
Yeah.
That had done that this year. It's sick.
And I heard some theory as to why, because it's like, it just sounds fucking cruel.
It is.
And it's to open up and give more options to the labor force so people don't have to hire immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Child labor laws are under attack in states across the country. So yeah, I think Mississippi found one, or dialed back a bunch of them. Iowa, this is like a academic paper, so I'm not going to be able to read through all of it, but it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Industry groups are pushing state legislatures to weaken child labor protections. This is in 2023. 6 Midwestern states, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, and South Dakota, and Arkansas, where a bill repealing restrictions on work for 14 and 15-year-olds has now been signed into law. One bill introduced in Minnesota would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work on construction sites. I think that one got overturned.
Oh my God, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that was in 2023. That it's fucked up. Like, this isn't just, I think sometimes this topic gets a little bit muddied because there certainly are circumstances, like if you're born and raised on a farm, I'm not saying that then it's like okay to make your kids get up at like the crack of dawn, but that was like part of the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's not what this shit's protecting. It's like letting kids work in fucking factories and shit. Like, it's not safe.
It's just another avenue for exploitation.
Yeah, it's not join the family business. Oh, 14-year-old Billy wants to work shifts at the shop, the family corner store. Mm-hmm. It's not that shit, although it would protect that too. But like, that's not, corporate greed goes deeper than the mom and pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not going to be good.
It's fucked up. It's scary.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into some of that in just a moment.
Great.
Okay, back to Matt McGuire.
This bitch.
He's like leading all these strikes. By 1882, he had become the secretary of and a leading figure of the Central Labor Union of New York. Mm-hmm. So he's working his way up like the political activist organizer ladder.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
According to the Historical Society, New Jersey, after President Cleveland signed into law the creation of a National Labor Day, is it Patterson, New Jersey?
Yes.
I always want to say Paterson. The T thing.
I don't know why you would ever want to say Paterson, but yeah. No, that makes sense.
Pater. Paterson.
That's all right.
You know what? Okay. The Patterson, New Jersey Morning Call.
Yes.
Published an opinion piece entitled Honor to Whom Honor is Due, which stated that the, quote, souvenir pen should go to Alderman Matthew McGuire of this city, who is the undisputed author of Labor Day as a holiday.
Yeah, fuck Peter McGuire.
Exactly.
We want Matthew McGuire.
We want Matthew McGuire. Thank you for following along. It seems that Matthew's contributions to Labor Day were forgotten because he held some fairly radical views for that time, the late 1800s, and for Samuel Gompers and his American Federation of Labor.
Who the fuck is Samuel Gompers?
He's the person who orchestrated replacing Matthew McGuire with Peter McGuire. I'll get to it.
This was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing, and Gompers sucks.
Fucking Gompers.
Gompers did not want Labor Day to become associated with the, quote, radical politics of Matthew McGuire, because he was like an activist organizer. Therefore, in an 1897 interview, Gompers' close friend, Peter J. McGuire, was assigned the credit for the origination of Labor Day.
Yeah, suck it, Matthew. Peter says Gompers in his back pocket.
Yeah.
Nobody expects Gompers.
Nobody expects Gompers. So they think it's because their names were super similar. People would just be like, oh, yeah, I meant that guy. So he like erased him from history in this interview.
This was calculated.
Mm-hmm.
Make no mistake.
So McGuire was like the stepdad who you grew up thinking was your real dad until you accidentally open some of his mail and find out you're not actually related. You're not his real son.
This is feeling specific.
Anyway.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Is Sean your dad?
Probably. We both have a really small mouth.
Yeah, those genes don't lie. That's definitely your dad. Just felt like you were letting out some maybe recent discoveries from your own life in that moment. No, it just
seems like that's like a movie motif.
1,000%.
Yeah. Just a classic situation you might find yourself in.
Typical. Happens every day.
Mm-hmm. So I have some fun facts. The first Labor Day, as we've been talking about, was celebrated on Tuesday, September 5th, 1882 in New York City. And it was organized in part by our real dad, Matthew McGuire.
Okay.
Who rode in a carriage with his wife, and also Henry Ward Beecher, the brother of Harriet Beecher Stowe.
Wow.
He was also an abolitionist and a social reformer, so they had like the cool carriage.
The woke carriage.
Yeah. They had at least 10,000 people in attendance of this big parade, which was huge considering like ways of mass communication at the time. Like they could put something in the newspaper, but it's like, you know, to gather that many people.
They really had to put the word out.
Plus, taking into account that Labor Day was not yet a national holiday, so many of the attendees were giving up a whole day's pay just to be there.
Wow.
Labor Day is the unofficial end of hot dog season. The National Hot Dog and Sausage Council says that Americans will eat 7 billion hot dogs between Memorial Day and Labor Day, which honestly seems low.
That's a lot of dogs, though.
I know, but I'm so hungry.
I love hot dogs.
Do you know what I found recently?
A hot dog?
Better. So my favorite kind of hot dog is the cheddar wurst.
You love a cheddar wurst. I like think of you every time I see one.
They now make double cheddar wursts.
What?
With twice as much cheese on the inside.
How are they fitting that much cheese in there? How much dog are they sacrificing to get the cheese in?
The ratio is...
Is it good?
Yes.
Oh!
It's fantastic.
Okay, well, fuck me.
Yeah.
Double cheese dog.
And what I did last week,
yes,
I made a double box of Kraft mac and cheese spirals.
Girl, no. This is too good.
I cut up like 3 or 4 double cheddar wursts, sliced it, fried the slices.
Oh my God.
Mixed it together. Put in a little garlic salt.
Bitch. Yum.
Yeah.
Was it just the best fucking thing you've ever made in your life? That's like including your baby.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This tasted
that goes without saying.
Way better than your baby does. Way better.
Took way less time, and it was way cheaper,
time.
Too.
Oh, my God. Infinitely cheaper. Incredible.
Oh, my last fun fact is that the first Waffle House opened on Labor Day in Avondale Estates, Georgia.
Fuck yes. And the world has not been the same.
I think it's funny that the Waffle House opened on
Labor Day. Yikes, guys.
Ooh, I don't know.
Don't love that choice.
Whose idea that was, but...
Had to make a statement.
Now to my devastating case.
Oh, great.
This is the story of Henry's Turkey Service.
Ooh.
So this is basically about how disgusting the face of corporate greed can be and how quickly they can exploit vulnerable people just to their fucking bones. On April 6th, 2011, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, filed an Americans with Disabilities Act lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Iowa.
Okay.
So this happened like 2 hours from where I live. It's like southeast of Iowa City. It's pretty close to Iowa City.
Okay.
The EEOC sued Henry's Turkey Service, a supplier of workers for poultry processors, also known as Hill County Farms, on behalf of 32 men with intellectual disabilities. The EEOC alleges wage violations, disparate treatment, and maintenance of a hostile work environment based on the claimant's intellectual disabilities, and sought monetary damages and injunctive relief. Like, fucking get them for everything.
Yeah.
Over 3 decades. Some of these men were in here for 40 years.
Oh, my God.
The men had worked at a processing plant, gutting turkeys under the supervision of their contractor, Hill County Farms. The contractor was paid to oversee their work and their living arrangements. The supervisors hit, kicked, handcuffed, and verbally abused the men, who were each paid $2 per day.
Oh, my God.
Other sources say that the labor broker paid the men as little as 41 cents an hour while providing them housing in a dilapidated bunkhouse on the outskirts of Atalissa, Iowa.
Yeah, housing meaning 4 shitty walls and a shitty roof. You know, it's not like they had anywhere nice to stay, I would imagine.
It goes beyond. Susan C. Hayes, I think I'm saying her last name right, but I don't know. The former director of Exceptional Persons, I think it's Exceptional Persons Incorporated, EPI. Anyway, Corey used to work there. There's one in Waterloo. And he was like, he sometimes stayed overnight with these 2 guys and just hung out with them, took them to Burger King. One of the guys like was obsessed with John Denver, and he would just be listening to John Denver, like a tape on his Walkman all the time.
I love that.
I know, they were just like super sweet. But anyway, this Exceptional Persons is a really cool organization. And this organization empowers individuals with differing abilities. So Susan C. Hayes is the former director. She says that the medical exams later revealed that the men had diabetes, hypertension, malnutrition, festering fungal infections.
Oh my God.
And severe dental problems that had gone untreated.
I mean, the untreated diabetes alone can cause so many of the things on that list and kill you. When was this?
They basically freed the men in 2011.
Holy shit.
According to an interview by the Des Moines Register with the sister of one of the men, her brother was later diagnosed with PTSD from his nearly 40-year ordeal.
Oh my God.
Their supervisors never received specialized training, like to
communicate with them and work along, meet their needs.
Care for these men. They never tapped into Iowa's social services program, and they never gave the men the choices in life granted by decades of advancements in disability civil rights.
Oh my God.
So they were kept
so fucked up.
Isolated. They didn't understand what their rights were. And nobody like knew that it was that bad outside of it.
Yeah.
The facts were either all admitted or proven true at trial, including that they were being paid $65 a month, and that came out to a little over $2 a day. The men worked at least 35 hours per week and were never paid overtime when they should have been eligible. Non-disabled workers at the same facilities holding the same or similar positions received substantially higher wages. Probably at least fucking minimum wage.
Right.
Not $2 a day.
It's shocking.
Furthermore, there was fraud involved.
Of course.
All of the claimants received monthly Social Security and or supplemental security income deposits into their individual bank accounts.
Oh, they did not fucking steal this money from them.
The defendant, Henry's Turkey Service, by way of an officer listed as a designated representative payee.
No.
On all of the accounts, he was the only one that had access to those funds.
I'm speechless. This is so vile.
It reminded me of the chaperone supervisor white people who were controlling all the money from the Osage Indians. The defendant claimed that these funds were used to reimburse the company for the men's room and board.
No, they're working for that. This isn't yours.
And that they should be credited toward and justify the men's low wages.
Holy I mean, you have to be so devoid of humanity to stand up and testify that as your defense. Well, we gave them a roof.
We'll get to the roof.
So that money's ours.
We'll get to the roof right now. So
I hate these fucking people.
The men were kept in substandard housing, go fucking figure, in a converted schoolhouse, which for some god-awful reason was painted bright turquoise. There's a picture.
Oh, God.
The whole house is just bright. It's so...
Listen, I love turquoise as much as the next person, but the paint in this house would make me lose my mind.
Yep, so the walls inside were painted bright primary colors, which is just fucking creepy.
It looks like a McDonald's play place, but like in the most haunted McDonald's you've ever fucking seen.
Yeah. A haunted play place is a great way to describe it. The men were restrained, confined to their rooms, and denied access to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
They were also subjected to derogatory and humiliating name calling based on their disabilities for decades.
And you know, because it looks like, if I'm looking at this photo right, there are a lot of plaintiffs on this lawsuit. So
there's 32.
So there are a lot of people with disabilities that were sought out. Like, this company probably used programs, all kinds of things that when you hire people who are protected under the ADA, sometimes there are kickbacks and like social benefits, all kinds of shit. But they clearly were choosing these people specifically to exploit them, knowing that they wouldn't know what their rights are, wouldn't know, maybe don't have much family that's checking on them. Like, they're probably going to group homes and finding people who don't have a lot of support, social support, so they don't get caught.
These men, at least most of them, were sourced in Texas, and we'll kind of get to it.
Oh my God. It's human trafficking.
Yeah. I think it started from a good place a long time ago. So basically where these guys had been working was like a farm, I guess, or some like care home where this guy started it because he was like, well, and this was back in the days when people were being institutionalized for their whole lives for having intellectual disabilities.
Right.
So he was like, well, I can care for these people here, give them a sense of purpose and give them like a job to do. And then it got really big, and then other people got involved, and then it turned into this fucking monstrosity.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like where it started out, like decades before.
I mean, even the most philanthropic of opportunities in the wrong hands can turn into a living nightmare. I mean, this is human trafficking. It's essentially slavery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
These folks had no support and were worked probably nearly to death. I'd be shocked if over the course of this entire quote unquote program, this vile practice, no one died.
We'll get to it.
Oh, God.
Okay, so here are some quotes from an NPR article about the living conditions for these men. Quote, windows were boarded up, allowing little ventilation or light. The cockroaches were overwhelming. There was another part that said cockroaches were like falling from the ceiling.
Oh my God.
And the men would eat with one hand over their plate to keep the bugs from falling into their food. It's horrific.
I'm rarely speechless. This is shocking.
A leaky roof, mildew, accumulated grease, and mice droppings contributed to an overwhelming stench. A fire marshal immediately condemned the building, later testifying it was the worst he'd seen in nearly 3,000 inspections. Robert Canino, the prosecuting attorney for the EEOC office, said that the turkey workers case reminded him of human trafficking cases he's prosecuted. The men were originally from Texas, but were transported out of state where they lived increasingly isolated lives.
Oh, God.
He says that vulnerable workers often remain silent because they don't know their legal rights, and they're usually isolated on purpose from their communities and live in fear of abuse.
There you go.
So we do know that one man named Alfred Busby Jr. got mad one night after being sent to his room for, quote, not doing his job right.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah. He said, no, I'm not going to my room. I want to watch TV with everyone else.
I'm a grown fucking man.
I'm a fucking adult man. Basically got really worked up and upset, understandably, about this, and ended up walking out of the house during a really bad snowstorm.
Oh, no.
And they looked for him, maybe not that hard. And
he didn't make it.
His body was found 3 months later, lying against a fence row, like a quarter of a mile away from the road.
Okay, so they clearly didn't look for him hard if he was a quarter of a mile away.
He was a quarter of a mile away from the nearest road.
And he probably, if it was a really bad snowstorm, he might have also been covered and they didn't see him until snow melted.
That is what, yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. This part is so gross. His death certificate reads, quote, mentally retarded man wandered away from home in sub-zero temperature, and then cites hypothermia as the cause of death.
Wow.
His death certificate basically is like,
He
fucking
did it to
wandered
himself.
away.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
There's no compassion like anywhere here.
feel physically sick.
Mm-hmm. Abuse by supervisors was a daily occurrence. Sometimes I wouldn't be allowed to get out of the van to like run into the local mini mart for snacks because the where they lived was a few miles away from the factory.
Mm-hmm.
So they take a bus back and forth, and they'd like stop at the tiny little gas station in town.
Mm-hmm.
And the townspeople all like knew them.
Yeah.
They called them the boys. They were the boys in the blue house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like, I think some like later interviews with some of the residents, they were like, well, we thought something might have been up, but didn't ask questions.
Yeah. I mean, the way that society as a whole treats and sees and dehumanizes disabled people is a serious problem. And I mean, it's like an internal bias that we all have to confront, because these are your nice neighbors who seem like super nice people who had a hunch that something wasn't right, but like didn't say anything because the population was disabled.
Yeah.
It's tough. Our society is only as fucking good as we treat our most vulnerable, and very much ableism is very much alive and well in modern society. And this was only in 2011 when this was reported.
Yeah. Well, it was like since like the fucking 70s.
Of course. But it was still very much in full swing when they were finally caught.
Oh, yeah. And they would have kept going.
Absolutely.
So there's like more abuse. Like they're just like told what to do as if they're fucking sixth graders. They might be told to pull weeds, to stay in his room with no TV or radio, to not allowing them to go to church on Sunday.
Oh, God.
Like some of the only things that they like.
The only community that maybe they have, of course they want to cut them off from that. God forbid they say something and then their church community tries to help.
Yep.
Of course that's going to be on the chopping block in terms of punishment. That's so fucked up.
It's really it's like psychological. It's really fucked up.
It's torture.
They might have someone place both hands on a pole and stay that way until supper, or to walk in circles carrying heavy weights. Like there's no fucking excuse for this.
No, and there's no end to the depravity of this shit.
One man was kicked in the nuts so hard that he had lasting testicular problems.
Oh my God.
So this entire sick fucking arrangement might never have been discovered, but in February 2009, Sherry Brown, the sister of one of the men, learned that her older brother only had $80 in his bank account after working for decades at this turkey plant. So she began inquiring around to different state agencies before contacting the Des Moines Register, which investigated. DHS got involved, and on February 12th, 2009, okay, so sorry, it was 2009, not 2011. 2011 is when they brought the case.
Got it.
21 men were taken out of the schoolhouse. They were taken to a nearby Super 8 motel where they each got a social worker to help them work out like what had just happened to them and like figure out what they needed.
Where they're going to go next and what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, just like immediate care at this motel. And there's a picture that I have that shows a few of the men like sitting on their motel beds. That was right after they got rescued.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
They look
sweet.
happy.
I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine they're extremely happy to be fucking out of there and cared for and listened to for the first time in literal decades.
Yeah, some of them were really like confused. Like they didn't understand that what they had gone through was like not normal.
Trauma, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all they knew.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And some of them were
these men
just like-
don't look that old. I imagine that a lot of them, even the ones that had been doing this for decades, could have been targeted when they were fairly young, like in their late teens, early 20s, and which makes sense from the predatory stance of this fucking corporation that's like, we want young, strong people who can work, but won't have the cognitive capacity to question what we're doing to them. It's sick. It's really
so sick. Yeah. So when, medics and the social workers were looking at these men, they had all sorts of injuries from missing fingernails to bleeding gums from like neglected dental wires. Like they had some kind of dental surgery, then they just like never went back for
of course not.
Take your shit out or anything. To one man who had hearing loss because his ears had never been cleaned.
Wow.
There was nobody caring for these men.
No care whatsoever.
Yeah. So they were then sent to be cared for in Waterloo at the exceptional persons. On June 25th, 2012, the EEOC moved for a partial summary judgment. So this is basically to simplify a trial by ruling on some claims, but not all of it. Like, okay, we'll take half of it now, figure out the other half later, like get to the point.
Yeah, and the process is so long and these men are owed so much, like fucking reparations, essentially, that it's like, let's just get what we can get for them now. Yeah.
Yeah. So during this partial summary judgment, they decided on the wage violation claims. Judge Charles R. Swole found that there was no genuine dispute as to any of the facts presented relevant to these claims, and the defendant has engaged in unlawful and discriminatory practices in violation of the ADA. Fucking duh.
Yeah.
On behalf of the employees, the EEOC was awarded $1,374,000 plus prejudgment interest of $283,000. So,
you know what? I know we live in a fucked up capitalist society, and that people of privilege like myself can say this easier than others who will truly be destitute by like sacrificing their jobs. But there were people involved in this who could have spoken up at any fucking time. Probably people working right alongside these men who knew what conditions they were living in, and no job is fucking worth it. Like, blow the fucking whistle. Like, this is so many people had to look away. I mean, even just the quote you had earlier from folks in the neighborhood who knew them. It's like, yeah, I thought something was weird, but never looked into it. It's just like, shame on us too, like for not speaking up and taking care of each other, because this went on. So many people had to be either actively complicit or just simply able to look the other way for this to have gone on for as long as it did.
Yeah.
And that's fucking heartbreaking. It's fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah, it really is.
It just makes me so fucking mad.
Well, you're going to be mad again.
Great.
So a jury trial on the other claims was held in April of 2013. And on May 1st, the jury sided with the EEOC and the men on all the claims, including disparate treatment of the conditions of employment for the men and the maintenance of a hostile work environment. So that was like
good.
The really bad one.
Yeah. So best possible outcome for the defendants because they found them guilty on these like pretty heavy charges.
It found that each of the 32 workers was entitled to $5.5 million as compensation.
Good.
The jury
They're entitled to more.
The jury also found that Henry's Turkey Service acted with malice or reckless indifference to the federally protected rights of the disabled former employees, and that each of those former employees was entitled to $2 million in punitive damages. So this grand total was $240 million, but it had to be reduced because it exceeded a legal cap on jury awards.
What the fuck?
That basically there's a law that says a jury can't just come up with a number because, I don't know, that wasn't a jury's job. Who knows?
What the fuck ever?
So the jury's award was slashed down to a total of $1.6 million.
To be split among all of the defendants?
Yep. Which was less than 1% the amount specified by the jurors. So they got all the way knocked down to about $50,000 per.
Oh my God, that's not even, like, even in 2009, that was barely a decent salary for 1 year of work.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
They kind of bounce back and forth for a while of like how much they owe, and then also there's like they filed for an injunctive relief for Henry's turkey service. So basically that makes them do or not do specific things.
Mm-hmm.
So they slapped a requirement that like Henry's or any of Henry's officers who reopen a business have to inform the EEOC.
Mm-hmm.
They have to obviously stop discriminating. They have to have ADA training for employees and supervisors of any successor business. So like forever.
I mean, they shouldn't be allowed to open a business ever the fuck again.
I know.
Now you get to be an employee with no agency and you can fuck right off.
Well, yeah. So they also demanded that they pay the EEOC's costs of like 10 grand, whatever. So there's like all these little payments and requirements going around. And then in September 2015, the New York Times reported that collecting the money owed to the men in this case was, quote, troublesome because the combined judgments in this case and a previous one by the Department of Justice resulted in Henry's owing over $3 million, which like, fuck you. Of course you owe $3 million.
Yeah.
At least.
That's peanuts. You certainly saved a whole lot more than that through your fucked up labor practice, paying your employees $2 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me you don't have $3 million.
They're saying that they don't. So
That's
the
bullshit.
officers of Henry's turkey service decided to be super shady and transferred many of their assets to their adult children and heirs.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, collecting the funds from the officers themselves proved to be difficult, and satisfaction of the judgment continued to elude the former employees. However, a land deal concerning a property dispute in Mills County, Texas, where Henry's turkey service was based, because remember, these guys came from Texas, piqued the interest of the EEOC. It's like, this is odd, this land dispute. It turns out that the land dispute involved a confidential settlement in which about $600,000 would have gone to the heirs of Henry's turkey service instead of Henry's itself.
So they could just hide more money that they then don't have to pay to the boys, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Federal officials found evidence of a fraudulent transaction. The confidentiality was overridden and the funds were redirected to the judgment.
Uh-huh.
So the EEOC also collected $272,000 of the judgment through garnishments and liens. So they're like,
take them for all they fucking have.
As of December 2017, the EEOC was expected to collect an additional $900,000 from the estate of Kenneth Henry, co-owner of Henry's Turkey Service, who passed away in 2016. And the distribution of that sum would bring the total recovery to roughly $1.7 million.
Ugh.
So Robert Canino, the prosecuting attorney for the EEOC, says that the real value of this win isn't about the money, regardless of whether it was $50,000 or $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Although that money would go a long way to those men.
Yeah, it really would. And they fucking earned it.
Yeah. Quote, they told me that they were glad people knew their story was the truth. They fully understand the concept of people understanding them and believing them and then valuing them. They got that. So if you want to learn more about this case, there's a book called The Boys in the Bunkhouse by Dan Barry that you can check out.
Wow.
But yeah, horrible, really gross.
Wow. I mean, yeah, but such an important story to tell so that we can keep this shit from continuing to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's horrifying.
Get to know your neighbors.
Yep.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Engage with your community.
Yeah, please. If you see something, say something, but not in like the gross Karen way. Yeah. We're both like, but chill.
Like, within reason.
You know what we mean. Don't let this slide. Don't call the cops on like your neighbor smoking weed and then let this kind of shit slide.
Yeah. Like look out for people, but like be cool about it.
Yeah, be fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's take a quick mental health break.
Yeah, let's hear from our sponsees and then come back for more laborious tale telling. Okay, so for my case this week, we have to go back in time to the 1880s.
For the second time this episode.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
America was in the Gilded Age, rapidly industrializing. And before industrialization, most people were farmers or skilled artisans, mostly independent, and they were key parts of their communities.
Speaking of the Gilded Age.
Yes, you watching it?
Did you know that one of the main characters is Meryl Streep's daughter?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
The school teacher.
Oh, okay.
It's
Damn.
Meryl Streep's daughter.
That's wild. I had no idea. Now I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it so I can like catch
See Meryl Streep
the similarities.
now.
Yeah. Good catch. Good one.
Thanks.
So with industrialization came machines, factories, and a lot of replacement of that skilled artisan labor with what was deemed unskilled labor, which meant they essentially was like easy to replace. Because now instead of having to teach someone a very complex task or process to achieve an end result, you could teach someone one section on like an assembly line or how to use a machine that would create that thing.
Yeah.
So it's a much less skilled position and it's a teachable position. So if people weren't doing the job in a satisfactory manner, they could be booted
Bye-bye.
and rehired. The U.S. also at this time was experiencing an influx of immigrants. So immigrants were often these replaceable, unskilled laborers who were paid penance, like minimal pay.
Yeah.
And treated like they were a dime a dozen. Problems faced for these workers included, so for all of these highly trained, skilled artisan positions, machinery allowed them to be replaced by low skill, low paying, quote unquote, replaceable positions. So all of these people who had been like cornerstones of their communities, like this is the guy you go to when you need XYZ made. Now his job is obsolete, basically, because people can get it cheaper from a factory or a machine.
It's so sad.
It is sad. I mean, I understand, and there are consequences to technological advancements. I mean, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, without any kind of like universal income, everything that everyone has is based on their job. Your fucking health insurance, whether you can get an apartment, a house, everything. And to have those things be so vulnerable, jobs in general, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and it's just like horribly depressing to see how it's like extrapolated from the 1880s to where we are today. It's like, how do we untangle this huge knot?
Yeah, it's tough. Assembly lines were monotonous and unsatisfying in terms of work. I mean, people would just stand for 10 to 12 fucking hours a day in one spot doing the same monotonous task over and over again. Like, think about that on your mental health. Not great.
Yeah.
Add that to conditions that were unsafe and often highly dangerous. America led the world with industrial fatalities, with 35,000, this is only what was reported, dying on the job each year.
Oh my God.
So imagine what they were writing off as not being on the job. I mean, you look at now how much corporations want to like deny. I mean, look what just happened at Disney World.
What happened
Did you
at
hear
Disney
about this?
World? No.
Okay, so this wasn't an employee, but a guy apparently died at Disney World, and his surviving family, I guess, was like trying to file some kind of claim of like negligence or something.
The Disney Plus thing?
Yeah, and they were like, well, he was a subscriber to Disney Plus, and it's in the fine print, so we don't have to cover any of this.
His wife died, and he was the one who signed up for Disney Plus and never even had a real subscription. It was just the free trial.
Yeah.
That's so fucking bonkers to me.
It's messed up. It's messed up.
And the sick part is they will probably win. Or they'll settle or something. But
I think that they're ending up settling because like that is some dystopian capitalism right there.
Ooh.
Like we all know Disney's fucking depraved as it is, but holy shit.
That fine
it's
print,
just like
man.
a new low. Workers faced... Oh, Beans just sat on my mouse. Okay, honey, let's not delete my notes. Mommy already did that today. Here we go. Need to shit my pants again. Workers face low pay and long hours. Sorry, recording with a cat is hard. Many people worked on average 60 to 80 hours a week.
Jesus Christ.
Child labor was at some of its worst then. And this is like what some states are like, bring this back.
That was fun.
Yeah, that wasn't that great. There's widespread poverty that led to increased child labor because every family was just desperate to survive. Mm-hmm. So the parents were working, kids were working. I mean, whole families were living in labor houses. It was wild. So in the 1880s, working conditions were dangerous. Treatment was poor. Wages were barely existent. Unsurprisingly, strikes would become increasingly common. The main demand would be centered on an 8-hour workday as opposed to the 10-hour or longer shift that was the standard for the time, with no reduction in pay for this standardization of an 8-hour workday. That was like their main thing. They're like, we're not even saying we don't want to work. Mm-hmm. We're saying we want to work 8 hours for the same pay that we're getting now. They weren't even asking for higher fucking wages.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. It's the
least you could do.
It's the least you could fucking do.
They're basically just saying like, hey, dude, there's a limit.
We need to sleep. Our bodies are falling apart. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there were like no EPA regulations. So imagine like the instances of cancer and like lung disease from what these poor fucking people were breathing in all day in these factories.
Radium girls.
The radium girls. Your jaw is gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
your jaw, ma'am,
is gone.
Your jaw.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's gone. This shit was fucking buck. Like, it's bad now.
Plus, your living conditions aren't even that great.
No,
in a lot of these urban areas too.
Most of these folks are deeply impoverished. A lot of them were like living in labor houses. Mm-hmm. So they worked essentially and lived in the same building. I took a tour in New York City of like one of these.
The Tenement Museum?
Yeah.
I was just going to bring that up.
I mean, these whole families were sharing 700 square feet, making beds out of scraps, living on top of each other and working out of their homes. It was shocking. Mm-hmm. So in the summer of 1884, the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions, predecessor of the American Federation of Labor, which is still around now, began to organize for a massive protest, planning for May 1st, 1886. So they needed a 2-year lead time because, like you mentioned in your case, to get all those people to show up for a parade before the time of a Facebook event invitation and the internet was hard work. So they really had to go around the country and mobilize people in person. This is a grassroots situation. And they were striking for a standardized 8-hour day, demanding 8 hours for labor, 8 hours for recreation, and 8 hours for rest of the 24-hour day.
I bet you Matt McGuire was there.
Probably. This wasn't even a radical idea. Both Illinois workers and federal employees were supposed to be covered by an 8-hour day by law created in 1867, but the government failed to enforce its own law. And Illinois employers would force workers to sign waivers to that law as a condition of employment.
Oh, for
Disney
God's
Plus fine
sakes.
print.
Oof.
It's in the employee handbook. Sorry. You signed it. In preparation, the organized labor movement in Chicago and Greater Illinois sent out questionnaires to employees to see how they felt about shorter hours and other issues, including child labor. The replies were obviously unfavorable, and these experiences were shared not just in Illinois, but by laborers around the country. And this set in motion the urgent need for change and support for laborers. They began to prepare for a massive labor strike, what was previously thought to be like, okay, let's just make this happen in Chicago because all this fucked up shit's happening in Illinois. But then as they kept doing this like grassroots outreach, it's like, oh, this is happening fucking everywhere. So this is going to be a national organized walkout, essentially.
The fervor grew.
Yeah. And I mean, the work it takes to organize people with nothing but pen, paper, mail, maybe, and like taking the train city to city and talking to workers. I mean, it's unbelievable what they put together. So they organized, and now we're skipping ahead to May 1st, 1866, the day of the strike. As the chosen date had arrived, workers across the United States walked off the job and began to strike. National estimates of striking workers range from 300,000 to 500,000 workers. I think it was likely on that higher end, but it's like the numbers are going to be so skewed because obviously a lot of the bureaus that handle the numbers want to downplay the actual turnout of the striking workers. Yeah, so I don't
organization.
Exactly. I don't think we're getting super accurate reporting, but they put in 2 years of work to lead up to the day of this strike. I want to give them that 500,000. I want to believe that people were fed up and willing to join this movement.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of fucking people. Workers were represented across industries. In Chicago, an estimated 30 to 40,000 went on strike, and there were perhaps twice as many people in the streets participating in the demonstrations and rallies. So about 80,000 people in the streets.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really incredible. For 2 days, the protests and gatherings remained peaceful. Like, this was all organized by laborers, for laborers, unions. Like, they were getting together and kind of sharing their experiences and talking about the changes that they wanted to make. The atmosphere was almost festive as the crowd listened to speeches and sang songs, but owners would continue to ignore worker demands and attempted to break the strike by hiring scabs rather than give in to the demands, which, again, 8-hour workday, same pay. That's basically what they're asking for. And like, maybe don't make my kid work.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Just give it to them. God.
One of the popular songs of the movement was this 1878 song, The 8-Hour Day, with the opening lines reading, "We mean to make things over. We are tired of toil for naught, with bare enough to live upon, and ne'er an hour for thought." And the chorus demanding 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will.
Oh, that's
very
nice.
reasonable.
I think that's reasonable.
Yep. So now it's May 3rd, 1886. The strike has been going on since the 1st, so 3 days. A rally was held outside the McCormick Reaper, as in harvester, which, like, terrifying. McCormick Reaper Works plant. Throughout the workday, the gathering was peaceful, but striking workers would search the gates of the factory to confront the scabs when the end of day work bell sounded. Which, like, you can't expect there not to be any conflict whatsoever when the stakes are this high and people are, like, fighting for their lives. It's just you're gonna heckle the scabs. It is what it is. But the response, as it always fucking is so overblown. So in an absolutely absurd response to the unarmed crowd confronting the scabs, police that were there to do quote unquote crowd control fired.
I'm sure.
Yeah, they opened fire into the crowd.
Jesus Christ.
And killed 2 McCormick workers that were striking.
Oh my God.
Movement leader August Spies, or Spays, it's spelled spies, but it's not pronounced that way. And now I'm having a hard time remembering how it's pronounced, but I think it's Spies. Later testified, quote, "I was very indignant. I knew from experience of the past that this butchering of people was done for the express purpose of defeating the 8-hour movement." The strikers / anarchists, as they were called, were outraged by the violence and quickly printed flyers calling for a rally the next day in Haymarket Square. More than 200,000 flyers would be distributed. The flyers stated that the police had murdered the strikers on behalf of business interests and urged workers to seek justice. Of note, the first version of the flyer, so this is important.
Okay.
The first version of the flyer included a kind of a call to action for workers to, quote, "arm yourself and appear in full force."
Oh.
But Spies, who is like the organizer of all of this, was like, no. I'm not going to speak at or support this rally unless those words are removed. Like, we don't want to further escalate already heated circumstances with guns like the fucking cops did. Take that shit out and reprint these and distribute the new version that does not say that. And so if you scroll in my notes, you can see the 2 side-by-side versions. They look almost exactly the same.
I see where they took it out.
Yep, and it's not
Why is it
all
in
in English. Most of the immigrants at this time that were in this area and were specifically working for this company were German immigrants. So they have it printed half in English, half in German.
That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah,
I gotta get all of them.
I mean, I have been witness to unionizing efforts in not restaurants that I worked at, but restaurants that I had close connections to. And it's a similar thing. Like, you have to make sure that all of the employees that are working there can understand exactly what you're proposing. And so the, union would always bring in translators to make sure that anyone, like, it's typically in a restaurant, a lot of the back of house folks will speak Spanish. And so they make sure that they're getting the materials in Spanish, and they have a translator that they can speak to directly so that they understand, what the proposal of the union is or unionizing is, just to make sure that, they can be part of it and they're not fucking exploited and have the wool pulled over their eyes because they don't speak the language.
So is that like mandated by a law, or is that just...
I would hope so.
I
don't know. That's just the union practice that I've seen on the restaurant side of things, is making sure that they provide translation services and booklets in Spanish so that the back of house can read the materials. It's just fucking the humane thing to do, but I don't know if there's a law that actually requires that. I'm not sure. So the next day, May 4th, people are starting to gather in Haymarket Square for this rally at 7:30 p.m. They had hoped for like 20,000 people, but about 2,500 showed up, which that's still a pretty good crowd.
Yeah.
The rally did begin peacefully, although it started about an hour late because there was like some rain. So I think they were waiting for more people to show up. But the crowd remained super calm. It was so calm that even the mayor at the time, Carter Harrison, who had stopped by to monitor things, would find the gathering peaceful and lawful. And he left early thinking, like, I came down here because I was worried people were going to be losing it because the cops killed those fucking people yesterday. But like, everyone's chill. I'm going to go.
You guys got it from here.
You guys are fine. It's all good. August Spies and his labor movement associates, Albert Parsons and Samuel Fielden, spoke to a crowd estimated variously between 600 and 3,000 people strong. Again, huge gaps in what the numbers actually were. But
well, they're all just guessing.
They're guessing.
I am horrible at estimating crowd size.
It's not easy to do.
No.
And again, there are corporate interests that would want to report that it was lower than it actually was. So it's hard to know from all this time ago. It feels very Trumpian. Like, we sold out all the rallies. It's like, okay, well, we have photography, so we know that's not
crowd
true.
Since Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah. Parson would speak for an hour, and then Fielden, who delivered a brief speech of only 10 minutes. The crowd would continue to disperse, leaving early due to the weather worsening. It's raining harder. They're starting to head home.
Okay.
At about 10:20 p.m., there would only be about 200 civilians left in the square when 176 police arrived in formation to disperse the crowd. Allegedly,
oh my God.
Yeah, they'd already been going for 3 hours. They started at 7:30. The mayor has stopped by. They had up to 3,000 people there before. It's raining. Almost everyone has gone home. It's super chill. And then 176 cops show up.
Fucking chill.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Fielden would insist that the meeting was peaceful, but Police Inspector John Bonfield proclaimed, "I command you," to Fielden, "in the name of the law, to desist, and you," addressing the 200 maybe people in the crowd, "to disperse." So they're like, everybody get the fuck out of here. We don't care that it's peaceful. You got to go home. Someone, and to this day, this is unknown who, but we have our thoughts, but we'll get to that, threw a homemade bomb at the cops.
Oh my God.
Listen, I get it. Right? Not the move, but like, I don't blame them.
Not the move.
Not the move, because I don't want you to get fucking shot, because they're gonna shoot you.
Yeah.
But like, it's not great.
Oh God.
The homemade fragmentation bomb exploded, killing policeman Matthias J. Deegan and wounding several others. Immediately after the blast, there was gunfire in response.
Yeah.
Although it was unclear who fired first, and sources would differ, probably along loyalty lines, it's generally accepted that the police fired first and demonstrators who may have brought weapons returned fire.
Well, if someone brought a fucking bomb, I'm not surprised that a bunch of other people brought guns.
Yeah, and remember, there had been another flyer in circulation that had literally said, like, strap up, or we ride at dawn. And then
so they did distribute some of those first
some
ones?
of them, not many, but it sounds like some of them were distributed. But it's also generally accepted that some of the police casualties, there were several, were due to police firing upon their own men in the chaos, which, like, duh. I believe that 100%.
So do I.
This is not new. Yeah. In his report on the incident, Inspector Bonfield wrote that, quote, he gave the order to cease firing, fearing that some of our men in the darkness might fire into each other. So even the, like, lead cop that was there that night was like, they're all going to kill each other. I'm yelling at them not to fucking shoot. An anonymous police official told the Chicago Tribune, quote, a very large number of the police were wounded by each other's revolvers. It was every man for himself, and while some got 2 or 3 squares away, the rest emptied their revolvers mainly into each other.
Okay.
Yeah. But the police keep us safe. Exact numbers of injuries and deaths are unclear, but the Illinois Labor History Society states that 7 policemen and 4 workers were killed, and dozens, possibly up to 70 other people were injured that were there.
Wow.
So the next day, May 5th, martial law is declared, not just in Chicago, but in locations all over the United States where other gatherings were happening, rallies were happening.
Ooh.
Labor union leaders would be rounded up and union newspapers would be completely shut down so they could stop circulating any kind of pamphlets, flyers, anything that would allow them to organize laborers. Completely shut down. There was public outrage, and despite lack of evidence, the general feeling was that somebody was going to have to pay. And, like, it was obvious that the corporate police, like, uncool side of the line was going after the unions and trying to, like, shut that shit down. And then the cool side was like, fuck no, like, we're still in this. But they had to bring charges, even though they didn't know who fucking threw the bomb or even knew who shot who. And they even said, yeah, most of these cops shot at each other. Like, that's RB. And they still had to file charges against somebody.
Yeah.
So the charges and the choice of suspects were definitely rooted in anti-anarchist, anti-communism, anti-union, which really, like, bubbled over into anti-worker in general. And this was very strongly held sentiment at that time. I mean, communism has been a fucking boogeyman in America since the founding fathers, because this is a capitalist nation and nobody wants equity. Communism actually isn't, like, a bad word, y'all. It can be manipulated, as we see, but it doesn't have to be like that. But anyway, it was just this kind of shit. And then there's also a fuck ton of xenophobia because there's a ton of immigrants in these skillless, quote unquote, labor positions. And so they're joining the unions. They're part of the organizing. Like, most of the organizers in this Haymarket riot were German immigrants that were subjected to these awful conditions of labor in the United States. And they became super easy scapegoats because all kinds of people who are not part of the labor force and are, like, you know, the liberal / centrist / Republican swaths of America are, like, easily manipulated into being afraid that immigrants are ruining our way of life and, like, taking our jobs and shit like that. So if they lean into that kind of rhetoric, then it's easy to turn public opinion on these union organizers that are really just fighting for everybody, including American citizen laborers, everybody to have fair workers' rights.
Too radical.
Way too radical. The police assumed that an anarchist had thrown the bomb as part of a planned conspiracy, although there was no proof of that.
But if we say it,
then it's real.
Believe it.
Yep. Police would raid the offices of, it's called Arbeiter Zeitung. This was one of the, like, union newspaper spots that had been shut down. They arrested August Spies, who was the editor, and his brother, who ended up not being charged, Michael Schwab, who was an editorial assistant, and Adolf Fischer, who was a typesetter.
Oh. The whole staff.
Yeah, half the staff.
Dang.
Seizing the revenge poster. They took the revenge poster as evidence, which is what they were calling the old version of the poster that asked laborers to arm themselves for the rally before it was changed, because not all of these posters were destroyed. So we don't know how many were distributed, but there were at least a couple of them still at the printer.
Yeah.
And the cops took it and they were like, see, this was planned. They organized to have them come attack us. And that's why they threw a bomb at us and blah, blah, blah. Other evidence that prosecution would deem incrimination was also collected from the printer. On May 7th, police would raid the home of German immigrant and labor movement member Louis Ling and his landlord, a man named William Seliger. In the raid, they found a number. So this Louis guy, this Louis guy is the one that like maybe did throw the bomb, because they found a number of bombs and bomb making materials in his house. And he was like part of this labor movement, not as like a higher up, but like he was going to these rallies.
He was engaged.
He was engaged. Okay. Ling's landlord and associate William Seliger was also arrested, but he cooperated with the police, identified Ling as a bomb maker, and wasn't charged. Ooh. He also, I think, got a little bit of a deal because he also testified on behalf of the prosecution. So he was like, yeah, that's him. That's his stuff. He lives downstairs. He's been making bombs.
He makes
bombs. Sorry, I didn't really do anything about this, but like, I'll testify to that if you just let me go. And they were like, okay, well, we have no other evidence, so sure. By May 14th, Rudolf Schnaubelt, another German immigrant and member of the labor movement, Schnaubelt, who had already been arrested before and released, was marked as the police's lead suspect on who actually threw the bomb. So they could get Louis on pretty decent probability that he had made the bomb, but they couldn't prove that he was the one who threw it. And it's very possible that he had just made these 4 other members of the movement. And they were looking at this guy, Schnaubelt, as the one who threw it, probably because he was active in the movement, but not because there was compelling evidence to determine that he threw it. And from a strategic perspective, if they could pin the making of the bomb on Ling, but not charge him with throwing it, then they could bring in somebody else that's deemed like problematic, a disruptor in the labor movement.
They're punishing 2 of them.
Yep. It's a twofer. It's a 2-for-1. But there was no compelling evidence to determine that he threw it. And by the time they were even closing in on him, he had caught word that like, yeah, they're looking at you, dude. Like they want to bring you down too for this bomb situation. He was like, fuck that. And he fled the country and did not stand trial. I think he went back to Germany. He was like, later, dudes. I'm out. So the trial started on June 4th of 1886. The 8 suspects were indicted by the grand jury and stood trial for being accessories to the murder of Officer Deegan and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. It was not explicitly stated at the time, but historians believe that the reason only Deegan's murder was brought to trial when 7 policemen died that night is because only Deegan's death could be directly attributed to the bomb. The others died by gunfire, and
probably from each other.
And it was a lot of them from each other. Like the cop, you know, it's bad when even the cop, like the lead cop himself, was like, "Yeah, they shot each other." Like this was rough. This was not great. So they could really only bring charges.
See what you see.
You guys, there's no defending this. Like we can't get out of this one. They fucked each other up big time. So they could really only successfully bring charges for Officer Deegan's death. By all accounts, the fair trial is the fair trial in the room with us. The answer is no. There was nothing fair about this trial. So the defendants, only 2 of the 8 defendants, Spies and Fielden, were even at that rally, like confirmed, like could be placed there by multiple sources, and because they were speakers. So like
they were like featured.
They were featured. They were basically the talent. So they're clearly not like out in the crowd. People could hear what they were saying. They're not saying like, throw your bombs at the cops. Here we go.
Yeah.
2 others, Fisher and Parson, had been at the rally earlier, but had left before the explosion even happened because the crowd was thinning out so much from the rain. Schwab had been speaking at a different rally in a different location at the time of the explosion.
Oh my God.
Engel had a pretty loose quote unquote alibi, but he's like, I wasn't even there. I was at home playing cards. Ling was seen and placed by witnesses almost a mile away. So another reason to believe that, yeah, he probably made the bomb, but gave it to someone else and somebody else tossed it. And American pro-labor movement participant Oscar Neeb, we don't know where he was, but he also claimed that he was not at the rally. So these are all the people that are on trial. Half of them were like probably not even fucking there.
Oh, good.
The jury, not impartial. Not an impartial jury of one's peers, not even close. Jury selection would take more than 3 weeks and call more than 1,000 people.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, because they had to weed through a lot of folks. Anyone who was a union member or expressed any sympathy toward the defendants was dismissed immediately.
Or like a worker.
Yep.
Oh my God.
One of the jurors would even be a relative of one of the police victims. One of the policemen that died, like his cousin was on the jury.
They can't do that.
Oh, yeah. But anyone who is like a laborer or involved in a union can't be on the jury. But like this fucking jagweed's cousin can be on it.
Right.
What the fuck? Judge Joseph Gary, the presiding judge, displayed open hostility toward the defendants throughout the trial.
That's a good sign.
Anytime there were objections, he would consistently rule in favor of the prosecution. Despite union sympathizers being consistently dismissed, most of the 12 final jurors did confess prejudice against the defendants. They're like, yeah, we don't like those fuckers. Put us on the jury.
Oh my God.
But the judge refused to dismiss those as long as they stated they would acquit if evidence supported it. It's like, we don't like them, but like, yeah, if the evidence is there, I guess we'll acquit. That was enough to put them on the jury.
Cool.
Yeah. So they were also subjected to the jury of public opinion, which we kind of talked about before. The 2-month-long trial ranks as one of the most notorious in American history, and the Chicago Tribune even offered to pay money to the jury if it found the 8 men guilty. So there was a lot of propaganda being churned out by like bigger news outlets to demonize these people because the fucking mainstream papers were also in the corporate pocket, and corporate interests do not want to side with the worker. So it was not good. I think you can predict how it turned out.
Yeah.
The prosecution argued that since the defendants had not actively discouraged the person who had thrown the bomb, they were therefore equally responsible as conspirators. You didn't yell at him for throwing a bomb, so like you're equally guilty in this guy's death.
Oh my God.
Half of them weren't even there.
You didn't have my back.
You did not have the cops' back, so you're guilty. While admitting that none of the defendants was involved in the bombing, the prosecution made the argument that Ling had built the bomb, and prosecution witnesses Harry Gilmer and Malvern Thompson tried to imply that the bomb thrower was helped by Spies, Fisher, and Schwab, who were rotating speakers throughout the day and probably didn't even have access or know where, what, who this guy was who actually threw it. We still don't know who actually threw it.
Oh, God.
The defendants claimed they had no knowledge of the bomber at all. I mean, frankly, if they're organizing and putting this on and like speaking, they're probably kind of busy.
Yeah.
And this is why like community safety at events like this, when you're, mobilizing, it's so important to be vigilant and have each other's backs and keep an eye out, because a rogue instigator can absolutely get in. I mean, that's frankly how so much of the destruction that happened during the Minneapolis uprising happened. It was a lot of fucking
Umbrella Man.
Yeah. Instigators that do not live in this community that got people very fucking riled up, and the tensions were high.
And we know that people come from out of state often to participate. Kyle Rittenhouse.
So like, be mindful, go with your community, have each other's backs, stay safe. But like, that doesn't, because something goes down at an event that you're at, doesn't make you responsible just for fucking being in the vicinity of the event. Like, this is such bullshit.
But on this day,
it did. Captain Michael Shack, who had led the investigation, was dismissed from the police force for allegedly having fabricated evidence in the case, but was reinstated in 1892. We're going to let this just blow over. Let's get through the trial. We know you made shit up. We don't care. You'll be back. We love you. You're just our little baby.
You're not fired. You're put on hold.
You're on hold, Dorinda. Historian Christopher Tail wrote that the prosecution focused on the writing and speeches of the defendants and notes that the conspiracy charge was legally unprecedented. The judge was, quote, partisan, and all jurors admitted prejudice against the defendants.
Yep.
Historian Carl Smith wrote, the visceral feelings of fear and anger surrounding the trial ruled out anything but the pretense of justice right from the outset. Smith notes that scholars have long considered the trial a, quote, notorious miscarriage of justice. On August 20th, 1886, all 8 defendants would be found guilty, essentially for holding, quote, un-American beliefs.
Oh, my God.
7 of the 8 would be sentenced to death by hanging.
Oh, my God.
And 1 Neeb would be sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. The sentencing provoked outrage from labor and workers' movements and their supporters, resulting in protests around the world and elevating the defendants to the status of martyrs, especially abroad, because many of them were immigrants.
Yeah.
So on August 20th, they get sentenced. November 10th, 1886. Ling actually died by suicide that day because he didn't want to face the gallows.
Went to die on his own terms.
Yeah, exactly. So he ended his life before being hung. Governor Richard Oglesby commuted Fielden and Schwab's sentences to life in prison because they were the only 2 remaining who wrote and asked him for leniency.
Oh.
So he granted it to them. November 11th, 1886, the first 4 to be sent to the gallows, again, minus Ling, who went out on his own terms, walked with, this is so dramatic, and I fucking hate that this had to happen, but like, I love that they were committed to this movement until literally their dying breath. I think that that's pretty badass. So they walked in white robes and sang Marseille, the anarchist anthem.
Oh.
Right before the door dropped from below him, Spies shouted, "The time will come when our silence will be more powerful than the voices you strangled today."
Whoa.
Like, killing us is going to give us power, and this movement power beyond anything you could possibly predict. Like, you might kill me today, but like the movement continues, so fuck you.
Oh man, like you're doing us.
You're making us
biggest
martyrs
PR
for the movement.
stunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
In their last words, Engel and Fisher called out hurrah for anarchism, and Parsons then requested to speak, but he was cut off when the signal was given to spring the trap door.
Oh no.
Yup.
I often think about a person dying in mid-sentence.
Oh, yeah.
A really sudden death.
That's basically what happened. I mean, I think he only got to say that he had last words, and they were like, clearly we're getting some really good quotes for the labor movement out of these guys. We got to fucking get this done because they are spitting out absolute fire and we need to shut this shit down. Just another fucking absolutely disgusting.
Do it.
Seriously. I mean, that's exactly what fucking happened. The state wanted to silence them.
Yeah.
But it didn't fucking work.
Oh my God.
So in the aftermath of these executions, these fucking state-sanctioned murders, in 1889, a commemorative 9-foot bronze statue of a Chicago policeman was erected in the middle of Haymarket Square with private funds raised by the Union League Club of Chicago, which is like a police union fucking thing. And people were like, what the fuck? Why is this guy here and not like the people who were killed by the state fighting for workers' rights?
Yeah.
The statue was unveiled on May 30th of 1889 by Frank Deegan, the son of Officer Matthias Deegan, who was murdered. It would be the subject of heavy vandalism, including when a streetcar jumped its tracks intentionally to crash into it on May 4th of 1927, which was the 41st anniversary of the riot. The streetcar was like, "You're fucking done, Deegan. You're out."
Oh my God.
The motorman said he was, quote, sick of seeing that policeman with his arm raised. So he crashed into it. It would also be blown up several times. I know, right? It would be blown up several times in 1969 and 1970. And then finally, the Chicago Police Monument now stands at the Chicago Police headquarters. They were like, fine, we'll move it.
Fine.
Stop blowing it up and driving a streetcar into it. We get it. This was in poor form.
It's so dark.
Then the Haymarket Martyrs Monument was erected in 1893. The monument was dedicated on June 25th, 1893, after a march from Chicago to this spot. The dedication ceremony was attended by 8,000 people with trade union flags and the American flag draped on the monument. It's located in Forest Home Cemetery, where Ling, Spies, Fisher, Engel, and Parsons were all buried, and Schwab and Neeb would be buried when they eventually passed.
Oh.
It was also subject to heavy vandalism over the years, because there's always going to be haters on each side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
June 26, 1893, the governor at that time, John Peter Atgeld, he was a more progressive governor of Illinois, and he himself was a German immigrant. So he signed pardons, post-mortem, of course, for Fielden, Neeb, and Schwab, calling them victims of, quote, hysteria, packed juries, and a biased judge, and noting that the state, quote, has never discovered who it was that threw the bomb which killed the policeman, and the evidence does not show any connection whatsoever between the defendants and the man who threw it.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty big declaration.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it took a while, but 1893, not, it could have been a lot longer. That's like, it was still fairly fresh at that time.
That is pretty fresh. Okay.
Altgeld also faulted the city of Chicago for failing to hold Pinkerton guards responsible for repeated use of lethal violence against striking workers. Altgeld speculated the bomb thrower might have been a disgruntled worker who was not associated with the defendants or the anarchist movement, but had a personal grudge against the police because they just fucking shot a bunch of their homies the day before. Like, it easily could have been that. We have no reason to believe it was any of these 8 guys had conspired to do it. In his pardoning statement, Altgeld said the record of police brutality toward the workers had invited revenge, adding, Captain Bonfield is the man who is really responsible for the deaths of police officers. I gotta say, it's a big fucking deal to have a public servant say this kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see more of this kind of accountability, because he's right.
This energy.
Yeah, this is the fucking energy I want to see after a fucking police shooting. So anti-labor governments around the world use the Chicago incident to crush local union movements, basically saying, like, look how violent it is. They're killing cops. People are rioting. They're looting. It's like, and it was
so bad that we sentenced 8 men to death.
Yeah. Didn't you know that Minneapolis burned to the ground in 2020 and it's just like never been the same? That's what these movements do.
Mm-hmm. They looted a Target.
They looted an entire Target. They burned down a police station and no one got hurt. It was crazy. Although some saw this trial and deaths, the victims of this trial and deaths as martyrs, generally it was seen as a real setback for organized labor, eventually leading to the disbandment of the Knights of Labor, the largest labor union at the time, and created an anti-immigrant sentiment since so many of the workers were immigrant laborers.
Oh, Jesus.
And so they're putting all of this, like, this escalated and got out of control. They're putting it on these immigrant laborers, these dangerous immigrants. It just like really, the PR around it and the propaganda around it really fucked over the labor movement for a while.
Yeah.
The 8-hour workday would continue to be a popular movement. And in 1888, the AFL union decided to once again campaign for it, agreeing on May 1st, 1890 for an organized worker strike. So they're trying it again. It did lead to the creation of May Day, aka International Workers' Day, on May 1st in 1889. It's recognized and celebrated around the world. It was established in 1889, but many first celebrations wouldn't take place until 1890 when, like, the 8-hour workday was actually kind of codified.
Yeah.
The United States and Canada would make the decision to move the Workers' Day to September, now known as Labor Day, to separate itself from the radical beginnings of the Haymarket riots. So Labor Day and May Day are super closely entwined.
Huh.
And I guess part of the reason why Labor Day is in September is to not give the people too much, inspo to rise up.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's the Haymarket riot.
Jesus Christ.
It's a wild one.
It is wild.
But I mean, if it weren't for their action and organization, there wouldn't have been an 8-hour workday.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
It's pretty wild.
Wow. Well,
we did it, y'all.
support the workers.
Support the workers.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be safe this Labor Day weekend.
Yes. Enjoy your cocktails responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to get out and organize, just, take care of each other. Be vigilant. Be safe.
Yeah. Be nice. Okay. See you next week.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Danielle Sylvan. Music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell. Editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!